Hey guys, welcome to our Central Europe seminar. So today what we're going to be talking about, okay, and as we talk through this video, make sure you're filling out their handout. All right, so if we look at Central Europe, in your clue checks and so forth, we would know that Central Europe contains the countries we're looking at here in this map. So we have French, the Netherlands, Belgium, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Liechtenstein, and so forth. So there's a lot of little countries in here. So we're going to spend our time talking about a few of them, some more in depth than others. So the first country we're going to talk about is actually the country of Belgium. So Belgium is a part of the Benelux nations, which includes Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So the three of them together they call the Benelux nations. So if we look at Belgium, Belgium is a country that's divided into two regions, the northern region and the southern region. Okay, the northern region is an area that we call Flanders, and they speak a language called Flemish. Flemish is very similar to the Dutch language, also very similar to German. Okay, the southern part of Belgium is an area called Wallonia, which is a fun name. The people there speak Wallonish, or the people there are called Walloons. They actually speak French. Okay, so if we look at these two regions, 70% of the population lives in the northern part of Belgium. So as we look at Belgium, they received its independence from the Netherlands in the 1800s. French was the country's official language, okay, even though Flemish is still spoken very commonly in the north. Okay, if we look at Belgium, economically, they have high standards of living, which means the people there make a pretty good wage and they live pretty nicely. A lot of it is because they have specially skilled jobs. So if we think of apprenticeships or trades, those are very specific jobs. You learn a trade and you produce a product. Belgium is very similar. So if we look at Belgium, their workers, they're really known for their carpets, their diamonds. Chocolate is also another one that they make a lot of money off of. In your clue checks, they also talked about the transportation system in Belgium can be seen from the moon because it's completely illuminated, and they can see this from outer space, which is pretty exciting. If we look at the capital of Belgium, it's called Brussels. Brussels is considered a cosmopolitan city because they have a lot of mixtures of culture, a lot of languages, a lot of traditions, all from the neighboring areas. Near Belgium is a place called the Netherlands, which we also talked about in our clue check. So if we looked at the Netherlands, the name Netherlands actually means low land because the Netherlands are so low. About 1/3 of the Netherlands is below sea level, and 1/5 of their land was reclaimed from the sea. So when the Romans came in and actually conquered much of Europe, the Romans were the first people to try to figure out, well, how do we make more land out of this area that's so underwater? So the Romans are going to build dikes. Okay, and dikes are simply a wall of earth and later on concrete that they use to hold the water back. Okay, so what they're going to do is build dikes, but now they have to figure out, well, how do we get this extra water out and make the land actually usable? Okay, that's where they started to use that windmill system instead of just manpower, okay, to start pumping that water out. And they're able to create new land that they were able to use for agriculture and so on. Okay, this new land is actually called polder, and since they use windmills so extensively throughout their history, if we look at the Netherlands or the Dutch people, the symbol of the Netherlands are the windmills, which is why on Dutch potato chips you always see that windmill in the distance. Okay, or else the hotel down in Marshfield, I think it's called the Dutch Inn, used to have a windmill out front, okay, just because that is the symbol of the Netherlands, how they reclaim their land. Okay, if we look at the Netherlands, since they have a lot of their land still below sea level, people kind of congregate into the areas that don't have a lot of water, which means they have a high population density where the people are going to live really close together. Okay, in order to utilize their land as much as possible, they're going to have modern farming techniques. They're going to use a lot of fertilizer in order to produce the crops that they do for trade. Now in the Netherlands, they produce a lot of agricultural products, but they're really known for the exportation of tulips. Because they export so many tulips around the world, they're also called the Garden of Europe. So you can see on these farms, you can see the rows of tulips that they have, which they then load and then they ship out to the neighboring countries. Okay, another country in Central Europe is France, and most of us heard of France and heard about the Eiffel Tower and things like that. So France, because of this area, they are known as the City of Lights. Actually, Paris is known as the City of Lights. Paris itself is the main manufacturing center of France, so most of your industries and factory jobs are located there. In different regions of France, they're known for different things just because your climate is going to change, or you're near the water or you're not. Okay, so if you're in the southwest part of France, this area has a good climate for growing grapes. So they also produce a lot of wine. So the Bordeaux region is known worldwide for the wine that they produce. If you're in the south part of France, they have a busy seaport called Marseille. It's actually the second most busiest seaport in all of Europe. But France also has off to the southeast the Alps, so they're known for skiing. So it really depends on what part of France you're in to look at the types of jobs and economy that they have there. France is definitely known for the Eiffel Tower, which we're looking at in this photo. It's the most visited paid attraction in the world. France, just like its neighboring country, Belgium, has a lot of foreign influences because they are kind of like right in that center of Europe. Okay, so we have like Brussels, Paris, Amsterdam. They have very diverse cultures and traditions and languages, which makes them a cosmopolitan city, kind of a blending of all of these areas together. Okay, now France throughout history has been pretty important. So we know that the Romans took over France for a while. The Franks actually called France its current name. They were ruled under the Gaul for a while. Okay, and as time goes on, France is really going to make its specialty like in the arts, so music and architecture, arts, and so on. So if we look at the arts itself, France was the area that was known to start a type of painting called Impressionism. Okay, so if you think about painters like Claude Monet, if you ever heard of him, or Auguste Renoir, these are artists that joined together and formed an Impressionist movement. So they're going to use their emotions to kind of show what they're seeing. So we're looking at a sunset, and they're going to put their emotions into it and use the color and the light and the shadows to kind of get across how they were feeling when they looked at that place that they painted. Okay, so Impressionism is going to catch on during France, kind of in that 16 to 1800 movement. A lot of these Impressionist paintings can be found at the Louvre, which is that main art museum located inside of France. If we go off to the eastern part of France, we're going to run into two countries, Switzerland and Austria. Okay, so Switzerland and Austria together form the Swiss countries. Okay, so if we look at these two countries, they're mostly covered by the mountains. Okay, so Switzerland is going to start as kind of a tiny nation, but it was made up of a whole bunch of cantons. Cantons are called states. Okay, now Switzerland, as it goes through, they decided that they didn't want to fight in any wars. So they're going to take this stance of neutrality. So if you're neutral, you don't take sides in a war, and you tend not to either help either side, you're completely out of it. And if they do choose to help, they have to help both sides equally. Okay, Switzerland then decided, well, instead of fighting, why don't we do something to help? Okay, so they're the country that organized the Red Cross, which we have definitely heard of today. Okay, and they're the ones that we can give credit to doing that. Okay, Switzerland itself today has 26 cantons. All the cantons are a little bit different, different dialects of language and so on, or how they make a living. Their economy is based a lot off of agriculture, so dairy farming is very prominent, and they produce a lot of chocolate, which they're known for, and cheese. Okay, but they also have those specialized industries just like Belgium. So banking is very common, tourism is very common, okay, and watches are very common. If you think about like the Swiss watch costs a lot of money, the Swiss Army knife, okay, very specialized ideas. Switzerland is known as a banking system because of that neutrality and how protected that they are. Okay, a lot of foreign nations like to put their money there because it seems to be like hidden, okay, and so forth. So that banking and their neutrality acts and their privacy acts really helps people put money there in a safe place. Austria, its neighboring country. Okay, if we look at Austria, they have a little bit of a different history than Switzerland does because they're not neutral. So most of Austria speaks German. Their boundaries were created after World War I. Before World War I, they decided to form an empire with a place called Hungary, and they were the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, who fought together along with Germany and Italy in World War I. After they lost World War I, their empire was broke up into two separate countries. We have Austria and Hungary today. Okay, we'll go back to that. During World War II, then, Austria was also taken over by Germany during that time. So they kind of had that turmoil past. So they didn't really become like that independent country that we know today until after World War II. Now, we spend a lot of our time on Germany itself, okay, just because the extensive history that Germany had, which made them very unique. Okay, so Germany was once owned by the Romans and later on Charlemagne. So Charlemagne was this great emperor that died, and when he died, all these little areas broke up into independent states. Okay, one of those states called Prussia in the 1800s decided, well, maybe instead of all being independent, maybe we should take all of these states and join them together. So Prussia is going to form or help form Germany's first type of government, which is a confederation. A confederation means all these states joined together under one united government, okay, but they also had their state governments, okay, so their federal government, their united government, meant that they were a country, they were together, but the state governments actually had quite a bit of power. Okay, so as the 1800s went on, we said that Germany joins with Austria and Hungary Empire in Italy in World War I. Well, after World War I, Germany was the country that lost, their alliance did. Okay, and then as time goes on, they hit the Great Depression. We know that Adolf Hitler is going to take control of Germany in 1933 along with his political party, the Nazis. We don't talk a lot about World War II here because we have that whole unit on World War II later. Okay, but the long and short of it is that Adolf Hitler and Germany lost World War II. Okay, the problem was that Allied nations, those that won the war, didn't want Germany to become powerful again, so they decided that they are going to split Germany up into two states, which is what we're looking at here. So in the blue, we're going to have West Germany, and in the east we're going to have East Germany. West Germany had a government similar and helped by countries like the United States and the United Kingdom. East Germany is going to have a communist government that is set up and helped out by the USSR, also known as the Soviet Union. Okay, so if we have the West and the East, democratic and communist, okay? With communism, a lot of people didn't have a lot of rights or freedoms, and they weren't getting paid a whole bunch during this time frame. Okay, so what we're going to notice is that that's going to be a source of conflict between the West and the East. The East Germans are going to try to go to West Germany for that better life. Okay, so what they're going to do at this time is they're going to build a wall that was 103 miles long right through Berlin, the capital. Okay, the center of this Berlin Wall was the Brandenburg Gate, okay, which was a symbol of democracy today, but it was also that sticking point between the East and the West. Okay, so the Berlin Wall was built to keep those people from escaping from East Germany to West Germany. Built by the Soviet Union, it was guarded and so forth just to keep their citizens in. Okay, as time goes on and we're looking at Germany, okay, communism is really going to be a detriment to a lot of the people there just because of how it was run. So the people had no rights, no freedoms, they didn't make a ton of money. Okay, and people are going to get sick of this relatively quickly, and communism spread, you know, all across from Germany eastward throughout the Soviet Union. Okay, so if we look at this, we can see the wall in this photo. This is going to be a point of contention between the West and the East. It also kind of erupted during the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union, which we talk about in our Russian seminar. Okay, so as time goes on, people are going to begin to fight back. Communism is going to start failing not only in Germany, but in the Soviet Union and the other countries near there in the late 80s and the early 90s. Okay, so as the USSR became bankrupt because of the Cold War, they also lost military power. Communism was losing popularity amongst the people, and the people are going to start pushing for reform. So on October 3rd, 1990, people are going to start busting down this Berlin Wall, and this is going to be like the symbol of the fall of communism. Okay, in 1990, then Germany was then reunited. If we look at Germany today, so despite its history of this turmoil and so forth between losing both World War I and World War II, then getting split up, okay, Germany is really doing well today in the 2019. They're a main industrial city. Okay, they're the leading industrial nation in Europe, which is kind of odd because they were split up for so long and half of it was communistic. Okay, if we look at central Germany, this is the area where a lot of their factories are, their industries are. The Ruhr River Valley is also very known for its iron and steel and mining. Okay, as we look at Germany in today's world, okay, not a lot of people live in like the big cities of Berlin and so forth. A lot of them still perform agriculture outside of those big cities. Frankfurt is known as a banking center. Heidelberg is also known for like their universities and so forth. Okay, some of their harbors are really important off the Elbe River, which flows into the North Sea, so they have that trade aspect. Okay, so as we kind of clip through this really fast, I think we're going to stop here. If you have extra questions, make sure to ask Mr. Sadowska or myself.